Next, a conversation with one of South Africa's most prolific writers. Charlayne Hunter-Gault has details.
Nadine Gordimer has described herself as a stranger in a strange land. Yet, for more than 30 years, the 63-year-old writer has been one of the major intellectual tour guides through the complex layers of South African life. And in great and intimate detail, she has produced damning indictments of her country's rigid system of racial segregation known as apartheid. Her work includes 7 collections of short stories, 6 Feet of the Country, and A Soldier's Embrace among them, and 9 novels, A World of Strangers, A Guest of Honor, The Conservationist, Burger's Daughter, and July's People among them. Her latest novel is called Sport of Nature, a sweeping panorama of Southern African life and politics as seen through the life of Hilela Kapran, a young Jewish girl who more or less sleeps her way to becoming a major partner in Black African Revolution. During a recent talk with Ms. Gordimer, I asked her about the meaning of her title, Sport of Nature, and what it means for her heroine.
Well, it's a genetic term, and it means a mutant, a plant or an animal that has departed from the parent type. A kind of freak, in fact. It can be a nasty creature, it can be an interesting creature, a beautiful thing, something that departs from what you'd expect. Hilela, in her strange way, finds, it's ironic to me, ironic and amusing, that she finds a way that the other people do not.
Your treatment of white liberals in South Africa is somewhat harsh. Why is that?
They have all sorts of squirming positions. One person, one vote, but a federal system. Well, you live in a federal system in this country, but I think that it means something rather different here. In the end, you would still have white control, ultimate control. Some people move on from that to the radical position, and then they know what to do. And
the radical position is what?
Well, the radical position doesn't accept that you can reform apartheid. That's what it boils down to. That it's not just a matter of letting blacks into the system, creating a third outhouse in Parliament. We've already got one for so-called colours and Indians. It's not that at all. You cannot reform apartheid. You've got to get rid of the whole thing. And that's where the liberals and the radicals part.
Your novel is set primarily in the present day. I mean, how dangerous was it to do that given the extreme volatility of the present political situation?
Dangerous vis-a-vis the government?
You've interwoven real situations with your fictitious story and bring it right up to the eventual takeover by blacks of the government in the country. Given positions like that you've taken in the book, I mean, what do you think the prospects of this book being banned in South Africa are?
I'm always rather optimistic about that, because you just never know. It's so unpredictable.
You've had books banned in the past. I mean, that's such a foreign concept here. What is it like to work and create and produce knowing that the state might say this can never see the light of day here?
Well, it isn't quite it if you're writing in the world language. So all of us who are banned there, who are also published outside as well as in the country, at least we know that we reach other people. But that's one thing, and you do want to be read by your own people in your own country. So it's happened to me 3 times, and I can only say that it's a ghostly feeling, because you've spent, in the case of this book, 3.5 years. It's a long time of your life has gone into that book, and you've been living concurrently, obviously, with it. Things have been happening to you, to your friends, and society in which you live, and you really want their reactions to this book.
Under those circumstances in which something you do can be banned, what goes through your mind as you create? Do you watch every word, every thought?
It doesn't hang over my head at all. I can only speak for myself. I never think about it. Never. And I think if one did, that would be very inhibiting. And among the people I know, the writers I know, black and white, they don't think about it either. You get lost in the work, you do the work, The thinking comes afterwards when you read the book over, and then you think, oh my God, you know, this may bring me into trouble, or that may. And sometimes I had friends who have then brought the manuscript along to the publisher. And the publisher suddenly says, well, I really don't know what to do about this book, whether we should go ahead and publish it or not.
There's a self-censorship.
Yes, well then the writer is faced with the terrible problem. Should he or she change the book or not?
And how does that get resolved?
I don't know, because there's a kind of tactful thing that one doesn't ask anybody, because it's such an awful question. Even if they were to say, yes, I took a chapter out of the book or I changed it, then I'm afraid that the feeling would be we'd rather look down on somebody that did that, most of us. So it's better not to ask. But I may say in my case, I've never changed a single word. And I never would.
You seem to be speaking out more publicly than in the past. What's motivating that?
Living there, realizing that one has a responsibility as a human being, as a white African. It's no good just saying, I believe that there's going to be a post-apartheid South Africa, that there's going to be justice there. Nothing's going to be perfect, but I believe in the future of South Africa. You've got to put your life on the line and show that you're in the struggle.
Is it harder to speak out than it is to write and get your views out that way?
Well, I don't consider that in my writing I get my views out. I separate my responsibility as a writer, my responsibility to my craft, from my responsibilities as a human being, as a white living in South Africa. I think there's a special responsibility about being a white in South Africa, as there are special responsibilities about being a black. Nobody, I think, can just go on living there without taking sides, yes.
Within the last few days, one of the South African Supreme Courts has struck down some of the key provisions of the emergency regulations on censorship. What's your reading of the impact of that?
Well, I'm appalled to see how successful this clampdown on the media has been. That we have disappeared from your television screens. In your newspapers, the coverage has shrunk tremendously. And I hope that American readers see, when they pick up a paper like the New York Times and they see a little box in the middle of a story from South Africa saying that information from South Africa, which includes, of course, photographs, has to be released by the Bureau of Information.
But you gave me an example a while ago of a photograph you saw, which you felt was distorting in its imagery.
Well, it was a photograph of black railway workers attacking a white policeman. Of course it happened, but that was a terrible fight going on, and there were 6 black people were killed in various places during that struggle with the, not only railway workers, with the whole transport system. And the only photograph, apparently, that was allowed out was the one showing blacks attacking a white policeman. What about all the photographs that must have shown the other side of it? The white police and army attacking blacks. They obviously had the guns, otherwise they couldn't have shot 6 people. And these people in the photograph, the blacks in the photograph, they had weapons. They were chunks of wood and bricks, as far as I could see.
So you're saying basically that you feel that people in South Africa, as well as outside, are being badly informed? There's
distortion by omission, which is also a strong form of distortion.
How serious is that? What difference does it make that people aren't informed?
I think it's very, very serious. It does 2 things at home. For some people, it induces a false sense of security. They want to be ostriches, they want to have their heads in the sand, and they don't want to know of what is happening, perhaps a few miles away, perhaps in another part of the country. And I think that it's very, very bad for the cause of freedom, for our cause, abroad, because if people abroad don't see what's going on in South Africa, then they begin to feel that they can wash their hands of the whole problem.
Given everything that's going on in South Africa, what is the environment like for an artist, a creator? Is it good? Is it bad?
It's so difficult to say, because if you look back into the past, or the present, you think of what has happened in Latin America, the incredible turmoil. But the most interesting writing, new writing, coming from the Americas, has come from these very places. Sometimes the writers have been in exile, sometimes they've been at home, sometimes they've gone back when the regime has changed. But there's been a great spurt of creative energy there. The same might be true of South Africa. And if you look back into the past, you think of the great novels of Russia in the 19th century, late 19th century. I mean, Dostoevsky was always writing one sentence ahead of the censors, of the Tsar's censors. But I think if there is any advantage to be gained for the writer, it's because people are living extraordinary lives. They're living very fully. It's almost impossible, certainly among blacks, very few people are living in a kind of rut, just paying off the rent on the price of a house, or paying off the TV set or the new set of furniture or whatever. Their lives are being jostled about and forced into all sorts of strange contortions by events.
And Nadine Gordimer's?
Well, mine too, of course. To a certain extent, I can't compare my experience with that of blacks living in the townships.
But to your creative energy, this does what?
Well, with me, and now I'm speaking only for myself, the necessity to do other things, not to concentrate myself entirely on my own work, I find a strain. But as I've said before, I feel I must do it.